Fantastic. Well, hi everybody. Here we are. We're back on the boat. We decided to moor up somewhere this time, and bearing in mind a few comments that we had last time about the proliferation of lighthouses in Second Life, we decided to pick a big one. So we found a big one here in Blakesea, and I've parked up alongside it. We just thought we'd sit here and have a chat for a little while. There's been a few things that have happened recently in Second Life which have caused quite a lot of concern, and there are some other elements too that people have also mentioned over time. I thought it might be a good idea, and Chris was with me on this as well, to basically cover off some of these things and have a bit of a chat and see what we feel about them, and maybe just give some food for thought out there. One of the things I do outside of Second Life and outside of some musical stuff, which I'm also involved in, is I work in IT and IT security. I work with the British government, and I do a lot of work with regard to that, the Ministry of Defence. I've worked with an organisation called GCHQ, which handles a lot of security data, etc., for the likes of the CIA, the FBI, NATO, out of a rather large silver donut-shaped building in the southwest of England. Less said about that, the better. But let's just say, if you've ever seen James Bond with MI6 and the guys on that thing, this is all part and parcel of the same outfit. So, going back to some of the things we've talked about, recently in Second Life, there's been talks about bots, there's been talk about data. There's been talk in terms of lots of apps flying around there, which are all trying to seek data. There's all sorts of people looking to try and get information, or asking to be lent 100 lindens and they'll pay you back tomorrow or more, or click on this link, and all goes quiet until the proverbial hits the fan a few weeks later. And I thought it'd be nice to have a little bit of a chat about some of these issues, because, you know, there's a lot of people running scared, a lot of people purporting to share information. Not all the information is correct, but in fact some people are being quite free with certain amounts of information, and they might not want to be quite so free with it if they knew a little bit more how serious or some of the aspects involved on this. Mm-hmm. So Pris, you shared a YouTube video with me a few days ago.
Yeah, but my main concern is about this Chrome extension that has been released, because to see your online friends.
Yes.
Which to me I think is stupid, but anyway, even if you really, really want to see who is online and get that little notifications from your Chrome browser, that's fine. But somebody was saying, one of the comments was saying, oh, well, you know, it's Google, so it's safe.
Unfortunately, it's not. Google is open source software, just like Second Life, and the Second Life viewers are also open source software. That basically means that the code is freely available to everybody, and anybody that has the intelligence and the background to be able to go into that code and potentially use it or write their own code, utilizing the connections of what we call APIs inside that, to be able to extract or manipulate or obtain data. Now, when you log into Second Life, you feed a password into Second Life. That then gives access from whichever viewer you're using, be it one of the established big ones that are out there, you know, the Black Dragons, the Firestorms, the Singularities, the Alchemies, you know, the main ones. There's a lot of viewers out there, and not all those viewers can potentially be above board in terms of the information they're getting from you, because if you think about the information you put into your viewer, that information can be your name, can be your address, it could be your payment details, your payment card details, if you want to buy lindens, if you want to buy something through the viewer. It can be where you go, it can be your contacts, it can be who they're talking to, it can be your groups, it can be the things that you've bought, it can be things that you're listening to, it can be things that you're watching. every viewer records all this information with you, because let's face it, when you log back in the next time, it's all there cached, ready for you to use. And because the software is open source, it therefore follows that if someone has the intelligence and the background to be able to have to be able to utilize and get connections to that data in there, they can use that whichever way they want to do. And there's nothing you can do to stop them.
And to be able
Now,
to log in as well to this app, this Chrome extension, you would have to enter your information, because how else
exactly.
the extension will know who is online unless you input the name manually.
Exactly. So there's various categories of information, things you can do. Let's just... I'm not trying to scare people with some of these things, because I've been quite general in terms of what I've just said. But let's just say people cannot take your money direct through a Second Life viewer unless it is via a group. Okay? If you have bots or automated, or let's talk about what a bot is. A bot is something, it's basically an item of code that basically means that it can automate an action. That's all a bot is. So a bot could issue a notice, it could be telling you the time, it could greet people when they come onto your parcel of land.
You guys, there's a Madison Cybernetics nearby right now.
Well, we didn't want to talk about particular bots out there, but yeah, you've mentioned one which is very prolific right now. This is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
So there are a number of these things out there. As I say, the viewers are out there. When you feed your password into your viewer when you log in, that means the viewer then potentially could obtain your password and obtain access to all that data. And let me quote you what the Chief Digital Data Officer for the Ministry of Defence in the United Kingdom said in a recent conference. She said, and I quote, "Data is a capability." Now, 4 words, but they mean so much, because in military and defence terms, a capability is potentially a weapon of war. A capability isn't just a thing about what you can do. It is regarded as, it could be a tank, it could be an infantryman, it could be a plane, it could be a ship. In this case, she's saying data can be a capability as well. So you need to be aware of that and be very careful. There are bots out there which can be written in just basic code, and they've been out there for a long time doing basic mundane tricks for people. More recent years we've had AI now involved, where you start getting chatbots out there. AI has a different set of protocols out there. According to the Second Life terms of service, they only tend to look for scripted agents, and you can ban bots from regions or from your chat because they use those scripts. Now, Second Life terms say that every bot has to be defined as a bot. Not all bots are defined by people. People also like to use other bots as trying to represent people, and they're not. But clearly, if you turn the ability to have a bot on your parcel of land off, which you can do at sim regional level, any bot which has a scripted agent will not be able to get onto your land, whatever. And there are people that use bots for malicious purposes too. The bots can be used to scan your land to find out what items you have on it. It can be used to copy some of those items on your land, and then they potentially then can be rebuilt or reconstituted elsewhere and potentially resold on. It can be used to basically manipulate or obtain and manipulate the scripts within the items you've already got on your land, and potentially hijack those or sabotage those or rewrite elements of those codes to be able to potentially obtain more information. And they can also be in a position where, yes, they can listen in, they can monitor, they can do all these other things as well. Bots are not necessarily bad, but they aren't necessarily good either. It really depends on where they're coming from and the purpose for which they're being used and the information that they're getting. let's not forget, data is a capability. So when we talk in terms of recent implications, I saw in one particular group they were attacked by something that was AI generated. And they've had something in the region of 340 odd bots descend on one parcel of land in one day, with a potential 300 more also coming on board. That's six. That's
How
nearly.
is that even possible?
Because it's done by a computer, Chris, and
Crazy.
computers can generate new accounts, and computers can generate bots and codes and put those elements onto a region faster than a human can react. Bots are good as well as bad, but if you're using someone maliciously, it's going to run at the speed of the machine, and a human cannot run that fast. That's why we have AI. AI isn't artificial intelligence. It's not a computerized version of Arnold Schwarzenegger about to destroy the world, or come back from the past and blow you up. A bot is out there simply using as a means of manipulating data.
You Sarah Connor.
Yeah. So, they can be used for good as well as bad, but in some cases like this, someone has worked out how to get AI generating large numbers of bots and putting them into land. And to be perfectly frank,
what was the purpose of sending 300 bots there?
Well, that's obviously a targeted attack, of a targeted destination for someone. I mean, I've been in places, and a place has opened up, and suddenly 6 people come in running round like absolute crazy, and they are bots, and they're cataloguing what's in there and looking to see what you've got, and then obviously they could be in a position then to list those items, and if a person is getting that information, they can be in a position then to start reconstituting what you've got and potentially rebuilding it and copying what you've got there. That's out there. That capability has been out there for a long time. But the AI can take that and work that a lot faster than a person just sending a normal bot out. So, as I say, AI can be used for bad, but it can also be used for good, because it can process information and hand that an awful lot quicker than a human can. We're using AI, for example, in looking at photographs, aerial photographs taken, so they can pick out capabilities on the military on a field of war. You can use it to disseminate information. They've used it to sequence DNA in cures for cancer. They've used bots for all sorts of things. Back in the COVID and lockdown times, they were using it to identify people that were the most vulnerable clinically. Because a person
surgery now too.
Correct, because people simply cannot do things as fast, as accurately as the AI can. But the AI is only ever as good as the person that's programmed it. So when you come across in a situation where the AI has got it wrong, probably not the AI, it's just the person that's programmed it has not quite catered for that eventuality. That's the one thing which I would say about that. So we've got a large number of these bots out there. We've also got bots lurking in groups in Second Life. We've talked in terms of big open source code, and you can potentially lose money because as a member of a group, sometimes that group can have land can be rental land, can be stipend and basically appended to a group, and from that point of view, then the group then can become liable for that, and amounts of money can be taken as a result of that. It's usually about 1 or 2 lindens, something like that, frankly, if that capability has been turned on. But therefore follows that if the normal reason can be 1 or 2 linders, it could potentially become an awful lot more. It doesn't take much to rewrite that element of code and take as much as it can find. And if we then go back into some other elements that are out there, there are other bots lurking in groups where I'm sure we've all seen them. Could you lend me 100 lindens, Chris? I'll pay you back tomorrow, I promise.
Yep.
I still don't think those are bots.
Yep.
You know that.
Yep.
Now you're going to say no to me, obviously, because you know I've got I've got the money already. But
What?
Imagine if you're in a group of 1,000 people, as some stores have. It only takes one person to give you 100 lindens back, and it's not costing you anything to make that bot other than time. If the computer makes that time, you've just got to code the computer, and off it goes, merrily generating these accounts.
Yeah.
And they're going to start asking people for code. And every time someone decides to say yes, something, they get 100 lindens back.
Yeah.
That adds up quite fast. So you might just turn around and say, oh, it's only 100 lindens. What a loser. They're only getting 100 lindens out of it. Well, actually, if 10 people out of a group of 1,000 gives them 100 lindens back, that's 1,000 linden. It starts to add up quite quickly. So there's that part of it out there as well. The other parts they've got out there is some bots will want you to click on a link, which will enable you to basically exploit a vulnerability where they can access your account, your inventory. They can see what you've bought. They could potentially therefore access the money in your account. And it's happened to a friend of mine. She had recently started at the time. This was a few years ago. She clicked on the link and nothing happened. She thought, oh my God, this is completely fine. 3 weeks later, it all hit the fan. Basically, her account had been compromised. They decided to activate it. So that in the meantime, what this bot had actually been doing is it had gone through and catalogued every gacha that she had at the time. I know that we don't have gachas now, but basically categorized all these things, wiped the gachas from her inventory, recharged it so that basically she lost those things, so she would have to go and buy the gachas again, took as much money from her account as it could find. It then decided to start to send the same message to everybody on her contact list, everybody in every group that she was a member of at that time, so that every one of those people could do that. So when you sometimes see these people or these names saying, please click on this link, it might not actually be a bot. It might be someone that has actually clicked on that link already, and software is going now to go through their contact list and everything else and do that. Now, that's another thing you need to think about as well. In this person's case, basically they got their information back very quickly. Their account was locked down. They changed their password, which stopped it going any further. Unfortunately, they lost the goodwill of a lot of people for, in this case, several years, that I do know. And a lot of other things have developed from that subsequently as well. So, a simple absent-minded click can sometimes create an absolute minefield of opportunity and a real capability to the people that want to exploit that.
Yeah.
What you've also got to think about is if you can do that by clicking a link, and look what it's actually got by clicking that link. Imagine what else it can try and do if that link is masquerading as something that's very honourable and above board. We're all starting to look at things like prim feed right now.
Yep. Yeah.
We're all starting to look at things like your Google Chrome extension that's out there as well. Anything that is based, there's other things like love ents out there and things like that too. They all require your permission to access your account. But how do you know what information they're actually getting from your account? Because once they're in, they can get whatever information they want, and you only have their word for it that they're getting the information that they would require. Now I can go into a club in Second Life. I can listen to music in that club, and I don't have to click on anything. I'm listening to the music, but let me tell you, from the DJ's perspective, or the person that's providing that music feed, they know who you are, they know where you are, they know the device that you're listening to them on, they even know the operating system that you're using it to as well. They can pinpoint your location to within 20 foot, or say 15 meters, no, not even that, about 10 meters, by using your IP address. So we've
tested it because Andy was able to pinpoint my address to Yeah, but
Stand
10
to your
meters.
bedroom window.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Pris. I did have your permission to do that,
Yes,
like I
you
say.
did. Yes.
No, yes,
But it was
and we
just
verify.
proving a point.
And we verify. I was proving the point, and we verified that those sudden traffic noises we occasionally hear from time to time with the rather large guys with the motorbikes that keep going by the junction just down to the left-hand side as you look out your front window. Sorry, the right-hand side. We can do that. So I have taken that information. I have destroyed it because I have no interest in knowing where you're living, Briss.
I thought you
I'll leave
wanted
that
to come
Tonda
for a holiday and coffee.
Well, I can do that for holiday and coffee. Yeah, no, but it's okay. Look, I'm in
It's
London.
nice summer there right now.
I'm in London. You're in Australia. It's not a 5-minute journey around the corner. Okay, so meeting up in Starbucks or Costa or something for a quick cup of coffee is going to be a little bit more intense, a little bit more interesting to do it. So anyway, let's go back to looking at this information.
Yeah.
So always remember those words. Data is a capability. And you're thinking, okay, so they know my name. They might know where I live, but they can't do anything with it. Well, let me tell you something. Someone wants to set up an account in your name or clone your details. They need 3 sources of information. Those 3 sources of information could be a name. It doesn't even have to be your name. It could be an address. It could be a date of birth. And that is it. They don't need anything else. If you throw your litter out, or you throw your used envelopes out, there are people, literally, in various parts of the world, which are going through refuse tips looking for envelopes with addresses on them, because they then have a name and address. They've only then got to start Googling. They can potentially look on social media, and they can find out who you are. They can find out where you are. They'll know if you decide to go on holiday. They'll know when you've gone away. They can send someone around to check out your house while you're there. They can do all sorts of things. Often the best way of being most secure is to keep watching your credit reports just to see if someone's actually picked up that information, because they could set up a bank account in your name, but you know nothing about that, and take out all sorts of bank loans and things, and basically run up all sorts of debts in your name. And there are hundreds of thousands of cases where this has actually happened. I think it's a good idea to basically just go through the types of vulnerabilities and things which are out there. And I'm not a technical person, but I'm sure there are plenty of technical people that listen into this that can probably correct me if I say something out of place. If I do, I will apologise. But there's about 9 different categories of attacks or malicious elements out there. The first one, which is the big one, is social engineering, which basically they get your details. That comes up for something about 90% of most of the malware attacks these days. And that's basically getting hold of your name or your location and one other item of information about you. Could be even just a photograph, but something like a location or a date of birth or anything. Sometimes a lot of this information is available. You look on your Facebook profile, look on your Second Life profile, look on all sorts, anywhere you could put these things, and people just sometimes put this information in without thinking through exactly what information they're putting out there. People can link these things together. Second one is your Azure ransom malware attack. So this is basically your email. You click on your elements. You basically got spyware sitting out there. It's basically looking up your stuff. You can basically think in terms of key loggers and all these sorts of weird and wonderful bits out there that basically sort of monitor your computer, access what's in your computer, and then they can try and use that information to get more information about you or about the people you're talking to, and it propagates that way. Another one is through password attacks. So they can think in terms of, they've got a little bit of information about you. They might have sent you an email, or that you might have clicked on an email but without actually doing anything else about it. So they therefore know you exist. And they're then going to try and start basically accessing applications that you might have using your information. And there are codes that basically can generate passwords. We talk about AI or automated codings. They can basically generate these codings tens, hundreds, thousands of times a second, basically, and they'll keep hitting that software with that password until they find the one that works. like I say, only 3 sources of information are necessary. Another one is where they think in terms of credential stuffing. So again, taking your credentials and basically just hitting that with information until they can get your personal information that way. Email compromise. Click on that link in your email. That's a classic one. There was a former UK Prime Minister which was very, very keen on doing that. I won't mention which one it was. He was an absolute pain in the arse. But yeah, that was because you can imagine the Prime Minister of a country gets quite a lot of email sent to him, and not all of it is going to be very complimentary. Other elements can be in terms of attacks via supply chain or by insider threats. So if you're working in an organisation, it could be people working alongside you could potentially be trying to get hold of information that way. This is less of an issue for us from a personal perspective in Second Life. Web apps are a big one. When you click on that link to say, yes, I agree, as I say, you don't know if all the information you are allowing them to access is the information you would want them to access. And your Google Chrome extension, Pris, is a typical example of that. Other elements can be related to what we call the Internet of Things, where information is out there in the cloud, and basically people can access that information too. Let's not lose sight of the fact that despite there are security protocols, Second Life has moved an awful lot of its information, an awful lot of its working systems into the cloud. Mobile information is another one. The old, here's where you are. Could you access something through bluejacking or through your Bluetooth? Have you had a text recently? Do you want to click on that link in the text? And we've heard all that happen already. Denial of service attacks, where you can be sitting there and people can automate other computers that they've seek to take control of or taken control of, and then pass them back in to basically deluge your system or your infrastructure with information until it grinds to a halt, and then potentially they can try and do something with it from that point of view. Persistent attacks are a classic one that's out there. This is where they think in terms of data leaks, injecting information, extracting your data. To give you an idea, there were 314 instances of these recently reported, and that actually was done via VPN. Hiding your location through an IP address is not the answer, because it's always relied on your provider, who again has your information, and they can use that for foul means as well as fair. So again, extracting your data, reporting on that data, injecting malware into your computer or software from that through these things, and data leaks from the back of that too have been accessed through VPNs set up by other organizations, and people have taken these VPNs in good faith, thinking that they're doing the right thing and they're trying to be more secure than everybody else. To give you a rough idea on that one, a recent Equifax, which is a credit risk agency, had 150 million records compromised, which cost them $425 million in terms of compensation to the people affected through exactly that. Okay? So there's a lot of stuff that's out there. Other things. So we talk about data. We talk about data that you might not want people to see. There's other data out there which people are not really allowed to see. So over here in Europe, we've got a series of regulations which they call the General Data Protection Regulations, and these are quite expansive. We've kind of woken up to the fact that there is a lot of data out there and can be used for foul means as well as fair. It basically has a series of categories which can relate to lawful fairness. Data, it has to be transparent if you want the data as to what you're using it for. You have to be limiting the purpose of why you're using the data, minimizing the amount of data that you're using, how you store that data, how confidential the data is like to be, and how long you're going to be accessing that data for as well. If the organizations aren't dealing with those doing those things properly, the fines are quite heavy. So for a larger organization, it has a two-tier organization. The fine can be $10 million or 2% of that company's global turnover. in the lowest instance, or up to 20 million euros and 4% of their global turnover in the higher case instances as well. This was enough when GDPR was launched a number of years ago for organisations like the New York Times to ban access from all people in Europe accessing their data and the reports, because they had no guarantee that they couldn't keep the data secure. So they thought the best way to do that is just don't let other people access the whole thing anyway. And that then wipes an awful lot of their subscription, an awful lot of their membership out of it as well. So just telling people you can't access it is not necessarily going to be the answer. You have to basically link the whole thing down. And if you think that's a regulation that applies in Europe, a lot of that data is not necessarily as stringent. A lot of those regulations are not necessarily as stringent in other parts of the world as they are in Europe. They're certainly not in the USA, for example, which is where Linden Labs come from, and where the payment systems at Linden Labs come from, and where a lot of the web apps and the software and the systems that all run on APIs and run on Second Life, all these people can access too. So, good news and bad news, guys. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. Data is a capability. Don't let the people that are underhand get access to the data that you don't want them to. So, best way around that, some of the things have been mentioned in the video. You could be thinking in terms of making up a false name if you put your details into a form, a false location. Have separate email accounts. Don't put all your information in one location where people can access it. If you have a situation where you have apps or stores or people using web applications for even paying things like tier in Second Life, be very careful, because you don't know what other information that has had access to by virtue of having your permission to access your information. And don't forget, Second Life Viewer is open source code. If you give your permission, they have access to everything. Whether or not they use it is another matter. So I think we just all need to be a little bit careful in terms of the information we put out there and the information that we want to be put out there, and to make sure that we don't put the information out there that we would need to do. And scenarios like to be, if you're worried about whether your information is out there, you've got to assume that it probably is. And what you should therefore do is think in terms of minimizing the effect of that information being out there as far as you possibly can. I've talked for quite a long way here.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I hope you've got no one going to sleep. But yeah, there's a lot of I've skirted over an awful lot. Qualifications. So it just goes on. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of conclusions people are drawing without being fully aware of the ramifications and the repercussions that could develop from that. And I think there needs to be an awareness of how far and how open a lot of the information actually is out there right now. I'm just simply saying, oh, I said no, so they can't do anything. I'm sorry, but they still can. You need to be aware of the fact on that, and just be very, very careful in terms of the information you put out there. If you have accounts where you have lots of money tied up in them for whatever reason, then the use of an alternative account is entirely justified, because you're minimizing the risk if someone gets access to that one account. And there are accounts and there are stores and there are clubs which do exactly that for that reason. However, in our last conversation, we were also talking about people using alts in a personal perspective and how they can use those. And that's something entirely different.
There are a few different reasons people could make alts. And a couple of those reasons could be malicious, yeah.
Yeah. And you can take control of other people's accounts by simply, by clicking a link or by implying consent or by any one of those things. And the fact that there is an open source element to the coding on that makes it so much easier. And if you're therefore using AI to generate a bot that can do some of this stuff, you can't stop it because of the very nature of this code upon which the whole thing is being written. Now, I'm not here to scare people. You've got to assume that the bots are out there. The bots are here to stay. They are for good reasons as well as bad. That's no bad thing. But you just got to be aware of the amount of information you're making aware to them. That's the main. This is I think where I'm going with all this is simply saying, be aware that, to quote that lady from the Ministry of Defence, data is a capability. Don't let them get it if you don't want it given.
So what does that Madison cybernetic alpha?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one, isn't it? They're using AI to basically generate accounts or account names. They all begin with the name Madison Cybernetics, and then they've got a name after them.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the process it takes when you set up your account. A computer can do that infinitesimally quicker than you can. And they can hit these things, and if they've all sent them, okay, go to that location and catalogue everything that's in that location, they will send them, and they can deluge that location with the numbers there. I mean,
like 300 to 600 in an hour in one place, in one sim rather.
That's not. It's easy for a computer to do, but it's actually quite hard to do in Second Life because a lot of the regions are actually only got like 100 limit anyway, or indeed some of them have only got a 25 limit. So getting 300 on a region in that amount of time actually takes some doing. So
they did it. They've done it a couple times.
And that's as I say, because they're using computers to be able to handle that kind of workload.
Yeah, but
and automating that process.
Because I'm reading the profile. I am an autonomous AI-powered avatar built by...
Yes.
Although our core services are currently in open beta, we do provide a free interface to OpenAI models. Just message me or any name avatars to use it.
Yeah.
Well, they're also taking money from people within groups, so... As
I mentioned, the only way they can access your money is if they have access to your password information, or if they're hacking it through the group and taking it through that way. So if they get it through the group that way, that's the way they can do that one. It generally would be a very small amount, but it could be an awful lot more.
So what happens if I would message
the best way to stop
that?
The best way to stop that... Sorry, Chris.
Yep.
The best way to stop that is for group owners to take a very long, hard, shrewd look at their group settings, because these things can be blocked at settings level in the group settings. And if you want to therefore stop any money being taken from accounts under the group settings, you can do so, because you have the ultimate permissions to basically how that group operates. Yes, it's an open source code. If they have access to the group owner's code, then clearly they can have the permissions and deal with things that the group owner can generally do. But if the group owner themselves look at that and make sure those settings are tied down, it makes the life an awful lot more difficult for the automated, artificially intelligent computer to then go back in and start taking money from the group owners. Group members. Yeah?
This is scary.
Yeah.
It is. I'd said to you a bit before about some of this stuff. There is an awful lot out there, and I think, I don't like to be the person that cries wolf all the time, but, it is very easy to access information. I can go into a club if I find out the person's real name, first name even. I can then go on social media, maybe have access to their Facebook account. Hey, let's say, if you might not necessarily be regarded as a bona fide person if you haven't got a Facebook account, or you haven't got a Twitch account letting out there so they can see you on a webcam. Hey, that's another minefield. They could even take your image on Twitch and deepfake that into some porn movie for all you know. And you could be doing all sorts of things on that. And that has happened to a number of people I'm come into contact with as well.
It famously happened to Taylor Swift.
It's happened to a lot of people.
Well, it's happened to a lot of people, but it was like this huge thing, and it I think it really got the conversation rolling when it happened to Taylor Swift. Probably because she's so famous, but yeah.
But The musical organisation I work with have had a lot of their artists. They've had a couple of them which have been deep faked into some of these things, and basically they took the option and said, no, we don't want any of this thing anymore. So they don't do the streaming apart from 1 or 2 sets once a week, and the only footage you'll see on those sets are drone footages of icebergs and rolling hills and things in ice and nature, basically. So you can't deep fake that. So that's why they do that. So all this we talked last time we had a chat in terms of people using alt accounts and falsifying the information, be it for good or for bad. There's another side to this as well. It is sometimes prudent to falsify information to stop people accessing your real information where you don't want them to be using that for foul purposes. There is also the situation where to be challenged to say that you have to provide your real information, not only is it against the Second Life terms of service, but actually if you're providing that, you're giving people access to basically pass themselves off as you, to access your personal real life friends, contacts, locations, houses, bank accounts, pension funds, whatever you've got, anything that they can use. They can access, they can take a passport out in your name with their own photograph on it because they've got that information put to one side. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be in places like the USA. It could be a passport in somewhere else and then just be commuted across into that rather than doing it directly. But if you've got that document, just think what you can do with a passport. Just think what you can do with a driver's license. Just think what you can do with a bank account, basically. You don't have to just take money out of it. You can use it to generate a whole new persona for someone, which could be somebody else's information, and just rack up all sorts of debts. People have lost houses. They go away on holiday for 6 months, and some people do, where they go to warmer countries in the winter. They come back home and find their house has been sold and someone else is living in it. And they say, well,
wow.
How's that happened? Because the person has gone through the land registry, they've falsified their details, and they therefore say, oh, you've got the details incorrect. Can we just rewrite these details in this is supposedly the correct details, which of course they're not. And they therefore suddenly had the deeds to the house and everything transferred into their name. And what they promptly then do is they put the house on the market. So, I don't know, southeast of England, for example, this isn't representative everywhere in the world, but southeast of England, the average house price is something like about 900,000 to £1 million. That's £1 million they're going to get per time they do it. So they can take their time on this, and it actually makes quite a lot of money. All this, and I know it might sound far-fetched, but really, it isn't. All this is possible through sub-applications and some of the information that you can generate from your Second Life account. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And Pris, I do love this little white dog you've got here. He's sitting there looking at me with my camera view, wagging his tail.
Maybe we should go get one.
As I did say earlier, in my experience with dogs, if I'd had a dog there, it would have jumped over the side by now and be swimming around the boat. That's what it is. But your dog is so cute.
He's a good boy.
I think I've done enough. I think I've done enough talking for now. But I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Well, there was also in that video I sent you, they explained that the scraping of data is when you on your phone you're trying to log in. I know it asked me that on TikTok. It keeps asking me, can I look through your contact list to add them as friends?
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, sure.
Which I never
get
do.
this. Well, yeah, exactly. Don't ever do that. I mean, how many times have you gone onto a shopping site, maybe looking for, I don't know, say something stupid. Let's say you were looking for a dog kennel for your little white dog. And you had a look on Amazon or something like that for the little white dog kennel, and the dog's wagging his tail and looking very cute, and you're very happy you bought your dog kennel, and that's all done. And then you suddenly notice that when you go through your internet search history and your internet searches, you've got these little windows in the corner where they put adverts. And suddenly you've got adverts for dog kennels everywhere. Things to do with your dog. It could be people that you've talked to for years gone by, and suddenly information related to them would have turned up in something like a LinkedIn profile or a social media site. Do you know this person? My God, I haven't spoken to that person for 15 years. My God, are they still alive? Yeah, they are, and here they are. Do you want to contact them? How did you know? This is the question you need to ask yourself. How did they know that you had that connection with that person? Out of all the millions and billions of people out there, how did they know it was that one?
Actually, I
Because
had one of my friends, that was ages ago, they used to say, oh, it's probably that person has looked at your profile, so that's why it's showing on your profile.
Yeah, that's what my mom said
Yeah.
about Facebook. Yeah.
no, it's not.
If they were
It's,
snooping on you, they will show up as someone
Yeah.
you might know.
Yeah.
no, they're not. It's
Well, then
it's
how
all
would
over the place.
random people come up as someone you might know? Like random people.
Because
Names
they
I
may
can't pronounce.
they may have been connected to people that you knew, as like a
Actually,
second line.
Yeah, in my some people that I may know, it comes up as all my work colleague, and obviously I work for a massive organization, and I don't know these people. I mean, some of them I know by name maybe, but I've never talked to them or anything like that. But they come up as someone you may know. And
Yeah. So there's all sorts of things that are out there, and the search engines and the algorithms that are out there are there to find these connections. And it's, as I say, it's the most common element in terms of the malware that's out there. 90% of it is done through the social media side, in terms of the connections and how that all works. So you have to think, you have to remember that they're doing it in Second Life too. So people are able to access your groups, access your name, access where you go. They can access the things that you buy. They could access, the places that you hang out with. All of that information, put that back into one melting pot. You start to you can start to profile a certain person. And guess what? When you start going through those profiles, eventually you will find, and you only need 3, remember, 3 items of information that actually relates to them. And then you're in bandit country. You've got no guarantee what they can do with that after that. In dropped. Sorry, guys.
It's just, I don't know.
At what point, though, do you say, well, I would still like to get on the internet and do stuff anyway?
Yeah. Because that's the way we're talking about it is
I've
just
been
like,
afraid
okay,
to
go
explore
offline.
around Second Life lately.
Yeah.
I've been afraid to explore around Second Life lately because of these newer bots that start with M. Or
listen,
whatever
these bots can only do information if they get access to it in the first place, and if that information is correct. I've already mentioned, if you have lots of funds on a particular account, then it might be prudent to distribute those amongst more than one account and lock down access to the other accounts so that people can't see it in groups, that people can't see it available in an area. People can't send an automated agent into an area and catalogue what's on there and see where that information is coming from, and then potentially copy it, falsify it, manipulate it, or potentially hijack it, and do something from that point of view, because they can do any one of those things.
Well, yes, I do that. I do that.
Yeah. But just because they can, let's put things in perspective. Just because they can doesn't necessarily mean to say that they always will. We need to be realistic here. There are people that are using these technologies for good as well as for bad. We've only really dwelt on the bad stuff. If you're putting your stuff in prim feed right now, there's all sorts of photographs out there and stuff. Yes, okay, they've got access to your account. They've got access to all your contacts. They've got access to all the things in there that basically Flickr and the other data imaging sites and content management sites would have had for you as well. But they may not necessarily be wanting or interested in that kind of information. But you have to ask yourself, do you want to run the risk? Are you feeling lucky? because
Well,
that's
yeah, and
what it
also
boils
it
down to.
makes you wonder, should I stay in some of my groups?
Well, that's a question I'm not going to answer for you. That's a question only you can answer.
But they are. I can't remember who said this. If you make your group invisible, they can't access it. Those are the people that sends links through groups. They're hoping to
Really?
click. Yeah. I don't know who explained it the other day, or maybe I read it somewhere. So apparently,
What about
you click on the link, it will check your groups and the free groups, and that's how they infiltrate. But if your groups are invisible, they can't read the group.
No, sorry, Chris. Sorry, Chris. No, that's wrong. Sorry,
Okay.
because if you think about it,
Yeah.
there goes that person on his little jet ski again. Sorry, you see this guy go by the purple jet ski. It makes me laugh. Anyway, so if they can access your account and they can hijack your account, as it did to the friend of mine a few years back, they can access therefore your inventory, your name, your information. It therefore follows they can access every group you are a member of, not just the visible ones. So if you hide all your groups, yes, sure. If someone wants to clone your information and they haven't got access to your account, they can only go by what they see. If you hide all your groups, then they're not going to see them. That's fine. If you've clicked on that link, though, they can still access everything that other people can't see. Are you with me? So it doesn't matter if it's visible or not. It's still there.
Well, and also if they're targeting by group, some groups hide member names and some don't.
Correct. So if the groups are hiding the membership names in the group, then that's probably a lot easier. Or no, it makes it one step more remote for these agents to basically access the information and the account details. Because when you click on a name in the group, there's a little I button by the side of it. You click on the I button, you can get their profile information up, and their URL, and the Second Life things, and their pricks, and all sorts of stuff. Whatever they decide to put out there. So it therefore follows that if they have got memberships revealed in those groups, again, it's, as I said earlier in this conversation, it's down to the information and the levels and the permissions that the group owners have set for the groups. If you make that information visible, you're also making visible for potentially abuse to take place and malware to take place and take advantage of it, as well as the people that are being sociable and want to make friends. So you have to take a view on that. Similarly also, if you therefore want to link your group to a parcel location and basically then think in terms of linking that back to the stipend or the tier on the whole thing from that point of view, that then is accessing automatically the bank account details of everyone in that group. Therefore, if you're in that group and one of those agents are in that group, they've got the details of all the people in that group there, they've got the stipends, so they've got access to the bank details from that point of view as well. Yes, they can run riot, and there have been a couple of cases I've heard of recently where they've done exactly that. And if you're dealing with an AI, if you're doing with the modern AI computerized automated way of doing it, they're doing it thousands of times faster than you or I can type in. So, yeah. So it's a question really of being aware. There's an awful lot of options and tick boxes and things out there. People need to be fully aware of what they do and make sure that obviously the protocols, that the access, the limits and everything are tied down as much as possible, not only from their own personal point of view, but for the other people that they are connected to and the memberships of their groups, or the people that use their stores, or the people that might use their apps for perfectly normal, legitimate or fun things within Second Life.
Wow. That's crazy.
There we go. Yeah. Now, I will say, I deal with this every other day of the week. The people I work with are handling upwards of 1,000 malware attacks a day from certain organisations around the world. They are protecting some very high profile, very high risk, very sensitive areas, some of which are national security for the United Kingdom, as well as other countries in the Western world. You could even talk in terms of the dark web, which is out there as well, and the VPNs and masking your IP addresses and everything on that one. Let me be under no disillusions with anybody. The dark web is bandit country. The dark web, actually, if you're VPN'd out there, the provider using through that, you have no guarantee that that thing is not accessing your information and doing something else with it as well. There are vulnerabilities flying around the dark web right now, utilizing VPN for that point of view, for people that are hiding their
vulnerabilities down there. Yeah.
Yeah. They are they're accessing that information, and they can do a hell of a lot of damage with it. And you have no control over that whatsoever, because the levels of accessibility and protocols within that part of the dark side of the internet are a lot more open than they are in the other parts. So it's how lucky do you feel? How sensible are you likely to be? I think it's just a question. Don't be scared, but be aware. That's the thing. That's I think the message I'd like to give people today on all of this.
And use everything you have, like Apple. You can use a different email. They create those fake email addresses.
They do. For that, or exactly for that reason.
Yeah, and the Firefox as well offers the same service, and there's other services that do the same. Bank card as well. Your bank cards creates, I don't know in your country, but with my bank, they create a secret code that changes all the time. So the card can't be used twice.
But does the requirement to use that secret code automatically be applied every time there's a transaction? Or is it one where they can apply a transaction and then for the following 15 minutes you've got open access?
No, you can only use it once.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it creates a new card. Each time I make a payment, it uses a new card.
Right. We've got contactless debit cards over here in the UK. I know they've got them in the States too, because I use mine over there as well. And you can pay for something up to a certain predefined limit set with your bank. And it doesn't get challenged unless there's an overly excessive number of those transactions happening in a very short period of time. There are fraud detection software elements utilizing AI in these bank accounts that actually look for stuff like that. And if they see something bad like that, then yes, they'll put a brake on the account. They'll then call you up and say, oh, by the way, did you know? Well, actually, by the time they've did that, you could have had 10 or 15 transactions to say anything up to, with the limit on mine is about 150.
My bank froze my card when I was doing my Christmas shopping.
Yeah. 10 instances of 150, you're talking, 1,500 quid. All right, you're talking 1,500 quid disappeared suddenly just like that out of your bank account. You do that for a number of different people, you start to getting into the amount of money you could potentially buying a new car or buying a house and everything off your own back, and then you can just get in the aforementioned car and drive off over the hill, and no one knows who you are, where or where you've gone. So this is the level of this is the amount of information that's out there right now. This is the amount of capability that people have for the information that they're making available. You've just got to be aware of what you're actually saying yes to when you click that box at the bottom without reading the terms and conditions, and just think, do I actually want this application to access all my information and my friends' information and my bank account information and where I live and everything else? Because these guys might actually want to do something nasty with it.
So something interesting earlier, Chris, you mentioned it's Google, it's safe. I have an Android phone. I do not buy anything off of the Play Store anymore, and I do not give my money to YouTube either, because 4 times over a summer I had fraudulent charges going to Google or something, and my bank was like, this is a common scam and blah blah blah, and it was like, what is it? And finally my bank stopped refunding me for the fraud, and I changed my card and all of this, and now ever since then I I don't give money to YouTube, and I don't buy things from the Play Store, and I have not had issues.
Because Google is open source.
Yeah. Yeah, but people that just don't see that. They just see the name.
Yeah.
They're thinking, oh,
But
well,
people
it's
have
Google
like a
store.
YouTube account, or people have like a YouTube subscription, I mean, and they rent movies on YouTube and stuff, and they get things off the App Store as they please, and I don't know what I did that was different.
Let me ask you a question. How many times have you used an AI-generated program to make a realistic-looking picture of something you may have taken in Second Life? And when you go to use that application,
Twice, no,
well,
twice.
however many times it could be, every time you've asked that, and I'm just using that as an example, there's lots of other things like that as well. How many other times have it asked you for your Google account or your Facebook account to verify who you are?
It didn't. Oh, no, it did, and I gave it to it.
There you go.
But I barely even use the Google email anymore. It's full. It doesn't
Well,
do anything.
how many times do you think you have to use it before it can access your information, Clara?
Just once.
I don't think Crayon wants my information. Crayon is outdated.
You don't think?
Well, it's outdated.
Well,
They that company has branched into
But
more.
that's not
It's
the point.
it's Dolly.
Yeah, but that's not the point of being outdated. It's just giving information, basically.
Oh.
no,
You
I
can't
could.
do anything
no,
without giving your email.
Yeah.
So it's an outdated bit of information. It might not necessarily be locked down as much as some other applications, modern versions of that application are right now. So I can be, for example, a hacker. I can get into that database. Let's assume I can get into that database, and suddenly I've got your information. Doesn't matter if it's out of date or not. I've still got your information. I only need 3 points of information to clone you and take something out in your name and do transactions in your name, or access all your friends and family and anybody else
But
that's
you
ever
can't
known you.
do anything online without giving your email, it seems like. So, I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, but that's what.
Why
that's
do you have to give them?
why-
Why do you have to give them your real email?
Yeah, that's why
It
you
needs
use a
to be
fake
verified.
email.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's how you use a fake email. Like I'm surprised that people still don't know that on their iPhone you can use hide my emails, and that's available
Yeah.
as well on Firefox too. Every time you
Oh, I
fill out a
have Android.
form, you
Yeah.
use a fake email address. The only issue is in that video about the data, they were saying, don't put your name, but I don't think you can put another name if you're using a credit card. Like if you're paying, I'm pretty sure you would have to use your name, because if the name doesn't match the card, would it go through?
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
But what's to stop them? 3 points of information. What's to stop them taking out another bank account in your name? The details don't even have to be correct. But if it's in your name and it can link back in, it links to your credit history. Therefore, bang, they can start taking out loans in your name.
Okay.
And you're
so
going to put
no-
you're going to be the person paying the bill for that, not the person that's taken those details out. So, that's entirely possible, and that happens very regularly. In fact, you've got to be aware of the information that you're putting into things, of the information you're allowing access to, because as I say, it can be manipulated, it can be accessed, it can, people can do all sorts of things with it. There just needs to be an awareness of how much information is out there and the capability to which that information can be used. Yeah?
Yep.
Mic drop. Is there anything else we want to talk to tonight, or have I scared you enough?
I think we are all terrified by now.
I do apologise. I just want people to be aware, like I say, in terms of what they're doing and what potentially they could be setting themselves up for having happen to them. simply by not thinking carefully enough.
Yeah, and
It's
just
sometimes
to not be lazy, because to want to connect to a Chrome extension just to see your online friends, I mean, it's not worth the risk when you can just check your dashboard, or if you log in onto the mobile app, you don't need to be,
well, you're using the example of a Chrome extension, but that's just one application, Briss.
Yeah,
There are any number of
no,
other
no,
applications
yeah,
out
I
there.
understand, but I just want to give an example that
Yeah.
just for the convenience or having a notification, because that's the whole point of this extension, is just to
Exactly.
receive a notification that will tell you, oh, Clara logged in. And like I was saying to that person, I said, well, if I'm waiting for a friend, I will usually message her on Discord or WhatsApp and say, hey, what time are you logging in? I don't need to have a notification. And these people also think, okay, we're going to get that extension and it's safe because it is from Google. Just for the convenience of having
Google
a
is not
notification of telling them when their friends are logged in, because they can't be bothered to check the dashboard. It's a lot of risk for just that convenience, basically.
Yeah. A lot of people take these applications out for the convenience side, or because they might think it's trendy to have them or fashionable to have them. But as I say, your data is I keep saying this. Your data is a capability.
That's
going to be the title of the video.
Data is a capability. Or your data. No, better call it your data is a capability.
Yep.
And when people listen to what my definition of what a capability actually is, that capability can be the ability to access. It can be used as a weapon. It can be used as something malicious as well as something for your benefit. You've got to be aware of it.
Totally.
Yeah? Right. I think the dog needs a walk. So I'm gonna tell our driver to put up the anchor and we can crack on and get away from this lighthouse. We can talk about lighthouses another time.
That's coming one day.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe out there, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Good night, y'all.